Hello everyone. My paper is Reimagining Online Design Practice. The emergence of the cloud along with broadband connectivity ushered in the era of online practice, and akin to other fields in design too, online methods of working had been seeing a gradual increase. However, studio-based practice had always been the primary and significantly predominant way of working in most areas of design practice, whether in independent creative consultancy practices or in-house design units within large companies. March 2020 saw the unprecedented global lockdown of most kind of work practices, which pushed the creative industries literally overnight to continue work through online modes. Naturally, this caused major disruption in work methods, which impacted productivity to work habits and behavior. However, as individuals and organizations gradually settled down to the new reality, multiple positive aspects and potential of online practices started emerging. This presentation examines the nature, challenges, and potential of online practices in various types of creative practices and design-based organizations before 2020, during the lockdown, and envisaging the future scenarios and possibilities. As design education being professional education, it is very closely related to practice, and understanding these aspects become very relevant and important. The methodology applied was to understand this phenomena through a series of conversations with design professionals in India who represent 6 different domains and types of creative practices. So my first conversation was from the field of architecture and interior design, Mr. Ankur Choksi, who is principal and co-founder of Studio Lotus, New Delhi, one of the leading design firms in India in its domain.
I think it's been a huge phase of learning for, I think, each and every one of us in the organization. So definitely, like you said, there were a lot of things that we were doing pre-COVID, which were already kind of early signs of, adapting to advantages of online interaction. So, for example, we had already set up a few of our people anchored in other cities who could collaborate and work in sync with the studio, which is the central base, so to say, in Delhi. And we had already started that process of a very efficient way of effectively collaborating and getting some work done, and which was working primarily online. So we were doing a lot of design discussions online. They used to go and visit those local sites in those cities and come back with feedback. And even with our clients, we had started doing the interim workshops, not the most critical ones, but the interim workshops would be done, say, on a video call. And those were slowly starting to work out really well. Clients and their project teams and all the larger teams were getting comfortable with it. The lockdown, probably one of the big things it did was it suddenly made all the interactions digital. The advantages one saw out of the whole thing was that, culturally, what happens is because the screens kind of disconnect you from the immediate, like it creates a sense of uh, distinctness in terms of access. Like, like you need to ask for access to the person. So you need to call for a meeting. You need to either call the person on a Google Meet call or whatever it is. So that disciplined everybody to really plan the meetings well, figure out an agenda, what they wanted to get done during that meeting. Also gave a lot of the leadership, especially people in the leadership role, a lot of time to focus on things and get things done, because otherwise they would constantly be bouncing between queries and immediate kind of things that come up. So prioritization became like more easier to do, and people started being cognizant of everybody's time. Going forward, we are considering, like creating these nodes, like I spoke about, which could be almost like independent studios, which once in a while come and connect with the core team as a practice, and we still can run projects as efficiently as we are doing in the core office.
The next in conversation is with Anthony Lopez, founder and principal of Lopez Design, which has been one of the leading branding and communication design firms in India for over 2 decades.
We were a studio which were operating out of various pockets of the country in terms of we had people from Chennai, people from Bangalore working with us. We were already basically online in many ways, So Google on the cloud, all our documents were in the cloud when we were sharing the documents and all those things. So we were we were comfortable working on the cloud as such, and we were doing a lot of our meetings on Google Meet and stuff like that. But as a working, basically, we worked very closely as a studio, as people. However, basically, when work from home started, we started immediately as we knew that we had to keep our distances and stuff like that. I mean, we were comfortable because as a studio, we were already working through the cloud. 50% of our work was anyway through the cloud, and the studio could easily work from home. People who did not have laptops took the computers from here, and we got started and working. But slowly, I realized that because of the type of work which we are doing, which was high quality, precise deliverables, and things like that in terms of craftsmanship and all those things, that I realized that there was this gap which was getting very difficult to fulfill, and we were spending more and more time online, constantly discussing, constantly trying to fulfill that gap through online means. The other thing is basically because of the disruption of what has happened our ways of thinking and working has changed. So it's like I make a lot of presentations to institutions and different bodies about our work, and I give talks and lectures, and even courses. So everything has gone online, and I realized that earlier I used to go to a particular institute or a body to give a talk or a workshop, and I would do the workshop, and there would always be my point of view, and that's how a singular, a monolithic presentation used to happen. But now I realized, okay, I can bring in anybody into my presentation. So first of all, the audience is spread across wherever they are. They're not in one single location. And I myself is in a different location. And I could bring a client or I could bring an expert, from anywhere for that particular time. And they could contribute and they could, add to what I was saying or agree or disagree. And that I thought was a very fantastic output which came out, because of this condition. Although the technology existed before, we never exploited it. So I said that basically we'll work online more, and more softwares and technologies and systems will enable us to come as integrated services through cloud, of course, and they will become the must do as far as the way of operations is concerned, and thereby automatically travel will become less, and we don't see travel peaking because of that reason for some time now. Then we will also basically learn how to do things in a minimalistic and an optimized way with optimized resources, and these are again both on personal and professional methods, which will be used, or attitude, in that sense.
Hanif Qureshi is an artist, graphic designer, typographer, and co-founder of Start India Foundation, which has been doing some amazing work in urban, large-scale public art in India today. And these are his views.
Before the lockdown, we were obviously using the internet and all the video calling systems, which within the city was kind of like still ignored, and you would go and meet a person. But then, but when I also have like my international practice, where it was most of the work is still happening through the video calls, and with the team members also, because we do mostly art and design, we need to kind of like interact with each other, and we need to work with each other on a kind of more of a personal basis, which had to shift to the completely on the internet. And yeah, that initially that had some kind of an impact. It also the trauma which this whole thing brings. There's some kind of like uncertainty, also like affecting people, team members also mentally. That way was a kind of a challenge. In art, I still see there's like a lot of personal interaction which has to come into play, but it has also pushed a lot of AR and augmented based art into it. Has also kind of like made artist kind of pushed the artist towards the AR sphere, which people people like me were probably like not trying before, but after that it's kind of like, also give me an opportunity to get into that world, because that was the only place where one could kind of indulge in some sort of art, is what you know and that art is basically wherever you want, wherever you are. So yeah, through filters and all, it kind of like really push the artist. This pandemic is giving an opportunity to the people to get more connected with the help of internet, and it's also giving an opportunity to these companies to also collect the data and learn more about us, much more than before. So we kind of like all feeding into this artificial intelligence vibe.
Vaibhav Kumaresh is one of the most prolific animators of India today, and his firm Vaibhav Studios is behind some really amazing animation work we have been seen in this domain from India. These are his views.
So thankfully, Jonak, in our case, a lot of the projects are long-term projects. So team members have been running with it for a quite long time. So they're all in the processes are quite set right now. For us, the challenge would be when we take on new projects at this stage, um, pitching it, collaborating amongst ourselves, planning the next stage, and how to execute that in the current challenges like the virtual medium. I think those would be the challenges for us, because like I mentioned, I'm seeing this as a temporary setup. um, so in at during this temporary setup, to try and perform at the optimum level, our tools will have to change. Obviously, when we are not able to meet physically, it will have to all resort to digital tools and figure out how a mix of physical within the norms and digitally controlling or communicating or coordinating. So that's a challenge we have to cope up with for this temporary phase. The availability of resources from any part of the globe has become much easier now, because everyone is in that frame of mind, and because it is all digital, the physical boundaries are no more such a huge issue. I think we discussed this the last time we spoke also. Like, if we need, like, from an education point of view, I'm also involved with TASI, which is the Animation Society of India, so where we have a lot of seminars or knowledge sharing events with students, professionals, and industry experts. So at this moment, we are discussing names like Peter Lord, Hayao Miyazaki, because everybody is accessible. Everyone is probably sitting in their studios or their homes, uh, and everyone is facing a similar kind of a challenge, because it's a global pandemic. So we are exploring possibilities of having a chat with these legends. So these resources are available, and anyone can log in and make the best of these resources. So that, to me, is something even after the pandemic ends, we would want to retain.
Next, we have an important voice representing the fashion design industry. Himanshu Shani, the co-founder of the Level 1111, has been doing some very unique work in this industry, and this is what he has to say.
Yeah, I mean, for our industry and particularly for our brand and what the way how we practice. So in 1111, we try to narrate our story from a seed to a complete stitch level to the finished garment. So which kind of takes us through the entire journey of cotton to the farm, to the weavers, to the dyers, the hand spinners, stitchings, and then the finishing of the garments. And in this case, the for us 90% of work happens in the rural spaces, and these artisan kind of practice their craft within their home, and they are surrounded in their own all that cultural practices happens within that village. So for us, they were always living there and working from home. So for them, it wasn't kind of affecting in a way of any lockdown. And even going forward, I mean, that's how the practices will happen. The major effect was at us who are in the urban spaces, who had to kind of change the way we live, and certain artisans who come to our workshop in the urban space, and the designers and all. So there were those practices kind of changed, but otherwise it has been the same way. Our retail, of course, online selling was always there, and it had kind of picked up in last 5 years. And in today's time, I mean, that is what becomes your primary bread and butter and the way of communication. We and which is not that easy if our products were not designed for the online selling. So a complex design, or I would say a drape design, which is usually seen over a body, that experience will be still difficult to give 100% online, because it differs from body to body how that fabric and how things will fall.
Finally, we have a textile designer who represents an in-house design studio within a large and established name in the textile industry, D Decor. Srina Ganguly is the GM of product development and brings some very different type of aspects and regarding this scenarios.
So after the research and ideation phase, the next step involves creating and buying artworks. Whilst most of the artwork studios already had their library digitally archived and would share links of their artworks post-purchase, very few actually thought about selling online. Questions like security, being able to use platforms which are encrypted end-to-end, trusting their clients about online and remote viewing would keep them from selling online. However, with the lockdown imposing a standstill on all businesses of this kind, that relied on direct contacts, they were forced to change. Simultaneously, a rapidly emerging ecosystem of digital transformation, has brought several players in the area of cloud platforms that are secure, that are end-to-end encrypted, and enable online selling, marketing, publishing. So these platforms are helping, the small businesses to emerge in a different way. Now, only a few months down the line, we see most of the artwork studios, jump back into business. So portfolios in heavy cases that used to be lugged around the world has now changed into online platforms where you effortlessly slide through the artwork. Even with a design group that's predominantly involved in working with physical samples. Face-to-face meetings in a group converted into group calls with everyone focusing on an image, a design, a plan through screen share, cross-departmental meetings, communications and exchange of ideas between teams through group calls, effortless and enabled us to effortlessly collaborate on a high number of projects. Even collaboration with teams of other organizations has become easier through tools and applications such as Teams, OneDrive, Trello, or even a Box kind of an environment that helps to manage and share content, as well as enable workflow better. One more thing about the digitization process, right, that we were going through was the necessity to be able to see, classify, and pull up every product, every SKU that we produce in multiple forms. So in the form of, so that it could be pulled up in meetings, internal meetings or sales meeting, and hence came the requirement for digital asset management, a very important practice that came up during this time. Finally comes the interface with the customer, the conclusion of the designer's journey in the industry. So this is something that has seen a massive transformation due to COVID. At the end of it, how do we emerge? We are yet to see how our work life and practices would continue beyond COVID. Would the changes in work methods be permanent and continue accelerating in the same direction, driving technology towards even more virtually immersive environments? Or would there be a backlash, triggered by innate sense of assurance for the tangible and our social needs? Would the need to remain remote persist? Some questions are difficult to answer now. So how do we emerge from this tunnel? Just different or better? Both.
As Trina has already summed up beautifully in her talk, imagination and flexibility will play very important roles in how individuals and organizations adapt and mold themselves to the requirement and possibilities of the future. and Reimagine online practice will play a crucial role in this scenario. Thank you.